it, and many companies said the U.S. should stop impose these additional tariffs because that will damage the interests of American companies. What's your take? From June 21st, from May 21st to 27th and June 24th to 26th, the USTR had a hearing regarding the $300 billion worth of Chinese goods to impose additional tariffs. So the participants from the American apparel, footwear, sports, steel, chemicals, metals, food, medicine, gaming, and other sectors, including 340 delegates. Among them, 330 oppose the tariff hike, which accounts for 96%. The American side believe the tariff hike will bring damage to the job creation and profit of the companies. This will also bring the harm to the American consumers. They believe tariff hike will make U.S. economies lose $1 trillion in the next 10 years. According to the survey, if the tariffs imposed, then the American consumers will pay $4.4 billion in addition to buy apparels, $2.5 billion for footwear, and $3.7 billion for toys, and $1.6 billion for home appliance. The majority of industrial associations and companies believe that China is very strong in supply chains. They cannot really find alternatives because for the Chinese, the supply chain has complete upstream and downstream facilities. They're very capable and can provide high-quality products with a low cost. On top of that, they also can fulfill the American market's needs with sufficient productivity. So in the short time period, there's no third party or U.S. itself replace the position of China. Because of these strong competitive advantages, if the U.S. decided to move its supply chain outside China, it's impossible. And also, the American companies and Chinese companies, through their years-long cooperation, they are really locked in the cooperation. If they start to relocate their map of production, then they will face a risk on how to control the quality of products and whether they have sufficient productivity. So all these proves that cooperation is the only way out. We hope the U.S. can heed the call from its own market, and through the cooperation and dialogue to solve the issues which serve the interests of people of both countries and people around the world. Thank you. From CNBC. So talk about the before two presidents meet in Osaka, that header from USTR and Vice Premier Liu He had a phone call. So was a detailed information about their telephone conversation. And for the two presidents, they will talk about Huawei and other tech companies issues in the United States, whether they will reach a negotiation or agreement, or they will have a further negotiation in this regard. And when is the China release the Unreliable Entity List, and how that impact the China's economy development and also a global economic development. Thank you for your three questions. Regarding your first question, June 24th, the high-level economic trade talks. The heads of the two negotiation teams had a conversation over the phone. So following the consensus reached by the two heads of state, the two sides agreed to continue the conversation, and I have no further information to be released. On your second question about the two presidents meet in Osaka, the question already answered by the spokesperson from MOFA. Regarding the Chinese companies, including Huawei, they are right now facing the restrictive measures. We have claimed the Chinese stance for several times. The U.S. used its national power and force to cracking down the Chinese companies, and they limited the American company to sell the products and technologies to Chinese companies. So these actually impact the normal trade and technology cooperation, which also damper the industrial chain and supply chain. This is no good for any side. President Xi Jinping, upon invitation, had a phone call conversation with President Donald Trump. President Xi said that hope the U.S. companies and the U.S. side treat Chinese companies as equal. So we urge the American to stop the coercing or bullying practice on Huawei and other Chinese companies. Thank you. From CCTV. From the FedEx actually sued the DOC. And we also had reports saying that because of the recurring problems caused by FedEx, so they also believe FedEx may be already listed on the Unreliable Entity List of China. We noticed this report. What I would like to say is China always opposes the wrongdoing of American side, blatantly bring its practice on export control. We talk about all this wrongdoing in the end will impact its economies, companies, and consumers. What kind of company will include it in the list? We will release the details in recent days. Overall, we will take a full consideration of the following issues. Number one, we think about whether certain entity had a practice saying that they stop providing or blocking or have the discriminatory measures on Chinese companies. And that practice, whether it's for a non-commercial business purpose, which is not in line with the contractual spirit. We will also look at whether that practice bring a real damage to the Chinese companies. And number four, we will see whether that practice also bring the risk or threatening to the national security. So I believe we also have a third question asked by CNBC, right? So regarding unreliable entity list measures, right now is under process, will release in recent days. As we mentioned before, for the unrealistic entity list mechanism aims to correct the wrongdoing of bring a disordering to the market. For the companies who in line with a contractual spirit, follow the market rules, they do not need to worry about this mechanism. China will redouble our efforts to safeguard their legitimate rights and interests, and also safeguard a market order based on contractual spirit and market rules. From CMG CNR, we believe right now recently the American field is entity list with 5 more Chinese organizations. What's your take on that? Till now this year, 47 Chinese companies or institutions are included in the so-called export-controlled entity list. The American side wrongly use the pretext of national security, which impacts the normal trade and technology cooperation, which damage the interests of Chinese companies and U.S. companies, which not help solving the trade imbalance issues concerned by the U.S. side. China firmly opposes this practice. The Chinese side always believe that the both sides should continue and strengthen our cooperation in high-tech technology and have carried out the normal trade and technology cooperation. This will do good to both companies in both countries and also serve the interests of the international communities. We hope the U.S. side to stop its wrongdoing and back to the right track of cooperation. Thank you. Thank you. With Phoenix TV. So the foreign media said that the American officials said they may stop the additional tariff of $300 billion worth of Chinese goods, but they're not really saying that the U.S. side will not to stop the current tariff hike as the precondition of resuming talks. China's stance is always clear-cut. We always oppose this bullying practice of unilateral tariff hacking. We welcome any actions that not bring detention to a further higher level. I believe this is also the aspiration of people in both countries and the international communities. From China Business Network. On June 24th, Premier Liu He, also the head of the negotiation team of China, had a phone call conversation with the head of the U.S. negotiation team, Lighthizer. So whether they will meet each other before the two presidents met and we will reach an agreement, whether that agreement will be different one compared to the one in the previous talks. On June 24th, heads of the two negotiating teams had a good conversation, and the communication is keeping going on between the two teams. If we have information, we'll release to you in a prompt manner. Thank you. Business Daily. During the negotiation of RCEC, China mentioned that there is a plan regarding 13 countries, not including New Zealand, and 2 other countries. Would you please to introduce more information in this regard? China has never had this statement. Since the inception of RCEP negotiation, China's position is always clear and consistent and proactive. We always believe that ASEAN should be the key drivers of negotiation. We will play a constructive role to make the progress of negotiation in a practical manner. Right now, the RCEP negotiation coming to a crucial stage, including India and the other negotiation parties. China always maintain a very proactive communication with all these related parties and conduct the multilateral conversations. China hope all parties can participate in the negotiation in a proactive manner and resolve the leftover questions and to hit our goal, that is to finish the negotiation by the end of this year. from UAE. This morning, we know in Changsha, Hunan province, we had the first China-Africa Expo. Would you please talk more about the details? How many companies participated in this year's expo? This morning, the first China-Africa Economic Expo was kicked off this morning, and President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message to the expo, which also laid a solid guideline for our future cooperation between China and Africa. And this congratulatory message was read out by Premier Liu Chunghua and also made a keynote speech. The related international organizations from United Nations signed a delegation to the expo. There were 120 delegates at the U.S. ministerial level, and we also have the president from the African countries also made their presence in the expo. The China-Africa Expo was launched by Chinese President Xi Jinping in the FOCAC. The expo seemed under the strengthening or cooperation, expanding or factors of cooperation, and we also had several conferences. And for the main conference, we have 5 key areas. We have 53 African countries, and the African Union had their own exhibition hall. And we also have the theme under the cooperation result between China and Africa. This showcase the fruitful outcomes in the trade, economy, and other sectors. And third, we also have the exhibition related to the good practice that relating the agriculture, infrastructure construction, industrial parks. Overall, there are 37 good examples. And we also have sub-national exhibition halls. Over 38 sub-national parties participated. And we also have 12 SOEs and 4 financial institutions joined this session. And we also have an online China-African Expo already put in place on June 26. Through the symposium, bridging of different projects and experience sharing and other activities to bring this expo as the new mechanism in terms of cooperation with African countries. And this is also can be served as a new platform of our practical cooperation with African countries and the key vendors. I hope we can drive this cooperation to a higher level in terms of quality and outcomes. We hope we can forge a more closer shared future for both China and Africa.
I'll ask in English, my colleague will translate. The first question is there any change to
from paper
proposed 3 lines for a deal which was a realistic purchases, removal of tariffs, and then equality in the deal text? The second question is, President Trump said he has a plan B if the negotiations with China don't work out. Does China also have a plan B if the talks on Saturday fail? And Secretary Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow have said that the deal was about 90% done in May when talks broke down. But they hope to return to the deal as it was before talks broke down and continue on as if nothing had happened. Is China agreeable to returning to the text of the deal that existed at late April, early May, and then continuing on from talks, or do you plan to create a new text and just negotiate based on that? Thank you.
您好，彭博新闻社。我们想问一下，第一就是关于刘鹤总理之前说的中方的3个核心关切，就是包括在那个文本协调性、平衡性这方面的3个关切，是不是依然没有改变？是中方认为要达成协议的一个重要的前提。第二是特朗普总统他今天他最近刚说对中国如果此次会面不能达成很好的协议的话，他会有一个第2的备选方案。请问中方是不是有同样的备选方案？美国的财长姆努钦和其他高官曾经表示说，对于中美双方的谈判，在上一轮谈判破裂之前是90%的内容都已经完成了，而且他们也想回到之前谈判的文本。那么中方是同意这样的，就是回到之前的文本，还是想要重新有新的文本再谈？对，谢谢。
关于你提到的第一个问题。
On your first question, regarding China's position on economic and trade negotiation, China always have a clear-cut, consistent position, which should be resolved completely. On your second and third question, I will answer together. Right now, the negotiation teams follow the consensus reached by the 2 heads of states in their phone call. Will have a good preparation before 2 presidents meet in Osaka G20 summit. I would like to emphasize that the trade war produced no winners. By the end of the day, it will bring the harm to the American companies and its consumers. We hope the U.S. side can heed the call from its domestic markets, consumers, and companies to correct its wrongdoing through equal conversation, resolve the questions which serve the interests of people in both countries and around the world. CMG. Suning International purchased 80% equities of the Carrefour. So this is kind of the action that the foreign supermarkets left the Chinese market in this way. What's your take on that? Through China's reform and opening up, the foreign retailers have played a constructive role to provide good service and products to the Chinese consumers and also bring the advanced managerial experience which drive the development of industry. China's retail and wholesale market is a market of full competitiveness. The M&A is the very normal practice of the business behavior and also a normal outcome of market competitiveness. With the emerging of new industries, new technologies, and new form of business, we have noticed that the foreign companies still think the Chinese market attractive through providing the high quality products and services. They can fulfill the demand in terms of customized, various, and high quality requirement. We believe as China is keeping releasing the productivities, which will provide more opportunities for all players. We are welcome the foreign investors to come to China and expand the market. We will also redouble efforts to build a more enabled environment which is transparent, predictable, fair, and just. for the foreign companies as well as domestic companies. Talking about O2O development, we believe this is a new momentum for retail industry, including foreign companies. So this can realize the advantage comparatively for different companies and also will further improve the supply chain. So this not only bring the complementary to different companies, which also will bring more benefit to our consumers. So we will also drive this consumption upgrading behavior. From Hong Kong, White House said President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping will meet each other in Osaka, local time 10:30 a.m. Would you please confirm this report? And my second question is that according to a report, the two negotiating teams will resume the talk in economic and trade areas, and we'll also have new personnel added in the negotiation teams from both sides. And there's also reported that both sides agreed that the two sides will stop the trade war before two presidents meet. Regarding the detailed plan of two presidents, I refer you to ask the questions to MOFA. On your second question, during Monday's telephone conversation, the heads of the two negotiation teams, following the consensus reached by the two heads of states in their phone calls, reached a consensus and agreed to keep communication closely. We will release the updated information to you once we have it. If the President Donald Trump not satisfied after his talk with President Xi Jinping and he insists to impose the additional tariff on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods, whether China will continue the trade talks. This is assumption, right? For this kind of assumption, I cannot give you any comments on that. But for the trade talks, China's position is always clear. We always oppose the unilateral trade tariff hike. Reuters. Is a follow-up questions.
路透社，就是接着刚才我的来自香港媒体的同行的问题，就是根据那个
From Reuters, it's a follow-up questions.
就是说已经达成那个协战
According to SMP,
停战协议
the both sides already
想问一
reached
下，就是中国商务部
the
怎么
agreement
看
on
这个报道？
trade
然后
war.
就是它是不是就是对中方来说它符合事实吗？然后第二个问题就是说，
So how the Chinese side take on that? Is that a reality?
华为公司的一些员工
Today, according to Bloomberg's report,
有给
Huawei
那个解放军做过研究，想问一下，就是中国商务部了解这个
there are
情况
some
吗
stuff from
中国商
Huawei
务部
before
怎么看？谢谢。
provide service to the Chinese military. So whether you know this information and what's your take on that? On your first question, what I can say, right now the two negotiating teams are following the consensus reached by the two heads of state. They continue their negotiation and to do a good preparation before two president meet in Osaka. We will update you once we have new information. On your second questions, I didn't see any related questions. Any further questions? If no, then that's the end of press conference. Thank you.